Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, we're going to be talking about transforming your operational roles in the way that you think about operations from a cost center to a profit center. And this to me is very foundational to a lot of the shift that I'm seeing in small business and what I truly believe is the future of operations, which at its core is the future of small business. Because the way that you achieve the goals that you have in your business, the way that you achieve the financial targets, the way that you're able to both grow and scale your business and do so in a way where you are not the one trapped in the day-to-day with absolutely everything dependent on you is through your operations. And there's a lot that's impacting operations. There's a lot that's shifting it, especially things like AI, different buying patterns, the stuff that we talk about every single week on this show. But one of the most important shifts that I see, one of the things that's absolutely foundational to the work that I'm doing in Strategic Ops Institute, the work that I'm doing with my private clients and Lean Out Method, which is about to be rebranded. So a little preview that there's some fun stuff coming before the end of the year. But a lot of the work that I do with people privately and that I've been talking about a lot more is really truly rethinking the way that you look at operations and you look at the people who support you, who you might consider in an operational role. And so today we're going to deep dive into what it looks like to actually take things that you might consider a cost center and turn them into a profit center. Because in today's economy, in today's market, in today's very discerning, bit unpredictable, very slow to decide market, you do not have any space for waste in your business. It's more important than ever that your business is lean. It's more important than ever that you're consistently leaning out and eliminating waste. You know, the things that I talk to you about every single week on this podcast and have for years now. So all of the things that I regularly talk about and work with businesses on, I have found becoming increasingly more important. And one of the things that causes operational roles to be looked at as more of a cost center is because they're typically laser focused on activities that are very run, very maintained, often fairly routine, and they are not directly tied to the growth of the business. And there is really honestly no space for that in a small business today. So every single role in your business needs to either directly be driving new revenue or retention or increased customer lifetime value and increased profitability. Every role either needs to directly impact that or be strategically putting in place the infrastructure, the systems, the automations, the support that makes it possible for the people who are to be able to do that and have expanded impact and expanded results. So in one way, shape, or form, every single role needs to tie to becoming a profit center in the business. And that's much easier to see for a role that's in more marketing or sales, more business development focused. But when you look at your operational roles, more of your running the business roles, this is where it can get a little muddy and it tends to be a cost center. So let's break down what this looks like and how to approach making this shift. The absolute first thing that's going to be important here is shifting your mindset around it. No longer can you view operations as the back end of the business. You have to think of operations in a new way. You have to treat it differently, which might mean you hire for it differently. It might mean that you shift what your current team is currently focused on. But if it's not the back end of the business anymore, then what is it? Well, when I think of what operations really is and what small businesses need it to be, more so than anything else, because again, the margins are tighter, the room for error is smaller, the impact of every single decision you make and every single dollar that you invest in your business is much larger the smaller your business is. Well, if you think about that, operations needs to be the backbone of sustainable and scalable growth. So it transforms from the back end of the business to the backbone of the growth that you want that will not only expand your business, but that will also sustain your business. So, one of the very first ways that this starts to shift is you have to look at your team differently. And I've talked about my Lean Dream Team pyramid on many different episodes in the past. This is something that when I do keynote speaking, I talk about all the time. And we just wrapped up one of our CSOO certifications. So we have been together as a group for the past year. And what was really fascinating to me is when we did our celebration this week and we talked about what everyone got out of it and the thing that people found to be the most transformational, it came back to the Lean Dream Team pyramid. And every time I share this, when I share this on a webinar, when I share this on a podcast, when I share this on stage, hands down, this is the thing that everyone says is one of the most impactful. And so I want you to pay close attention. And if you've heard me talk about this before, listen again and listen through a different lens, because sometimes it takes hearing it a few times to get the nuance of it and to go past to the obvious, oh yeah, of course, and to start to really think about how this applies in your business. One of the things I talk about with the Lean Dream Team pyramid is that there's 4 levels in your business. And one of the biggest challenges where most leaders, where most founders end up completely overworked with way too much dependent on them is when they have people at the execution level. And most founders, especially if you are still under 7 figures or you have 7 figures, but you've got a hodgepodge of people that are supporting you, you don't have like a full true team structure or a true right-hand person at a strategy level. If that is you, then what you likely have in your business is a lot of people at that execution level, and then you filling all of the other levels of the pyramid. So at the top is vision, below vision is strategy, at the bottom is execution, and the level that is missing in almost every single business until we talk through it and I help them with this is the strategic execution level. And you need people who execute in your business, absolutely critical, of course, especially if you tend to be on the visionary side of things, probably fantastic at ideation, coming up with innovative ideas, but not necessarily the one who's going to implement it, see it through, maintain it, optimize it, all the things. So you need people who can take action on your ideas and who can make sure that, they're done well, they continue to produce the results that you want in the business, absolutely. But where most businesses go wrong, and where most of the complexity comes in for you and most of the dependency on you comes in, but also what drives operations being seen as a cost center and where it does not typically contribute to the growth of the business is when you have people that you've hired at the execution level. I truly believe that in a small business, you really never want to hire anyone at the execution level, pretty much ever. But that being said, with AI coming into the picture, much more so in AI agents, and being able to take over so much of what people do in the business, there is truly never a reason again to hire someone at an execution level in your business. And so hear me out here, because if you're thinking, I need people to execute, who's going to do all the work? Of course, absolutely. But the difference in the shift is you don't hire at the execution level. Your execution level is handled by automations and AI agents, and most of it doesn't even really need to be done. But that being said, where you hire is at the strategic execution level. And there is a very, very big difference between execution and strategic execution. The thing about the pyramid that is pretty eye-opening for people is that you always inherit the levels below you if you do not have someone in those levels. And so if you have a team of executors, a team of people who just get things done and you need to tell them what to do, they either do their work based on following some kind of SOP. So their work is very routine, it's very repetitive, it's very predictable. You can have that on one side, or you need to consistently be telling that person what to do. You're basically tasking them to go do some things. They're doing the things, you're checking the thing, you're giving them the next thing to do. If you have either of those 2 scenarios in place, that is a sign that you have someone at an execution level. A strategic execution level, totally different. You do not need those things. Yes, you might have some SOPs that help them understand what success looks like, but a strategic execution person is a strategic thinker. And because they inherit the levels below them on the pyramid, a strategic execution person also handles the execution. They either will do that execution themselves, or they are the ones who will run, implement, maintain, tweak, work with the AI agents and the automations and any of the tech and tools in the business. So a strategic execution level versus an execution level, they're the ones who can understand your vision. They can understand your goals. They can have more high level directional things, and they don't need to be told the details of what to do because they know they are smart enough to figure it out. They are the person who will create the plan. They are the person who has the level of depth and expertise, not just in crossing something off a list and getting something done, but in actually owning outcomes and in figuring out how to achieve those outcomes. They will both figure it out strategically and they will go and do it themselves, or they will leverage the tools and technologies available to them to do it. Total 100% game changer when you shift from hiring at an execution level and having people on your team at an execution level to moving to a strategic execution level. And the reason people don't do this is strategic execution level is bigger investment than people at an execution level. So a lot of times people will start execution. They'll hire with an overseas VA or someone. They'll hire someone really new and really early on in their career. And they bring somebody in at a rate that they feel that they can pay. And then what they don't realize is, again, every level of the pyramid inherits the levels below them. And if all you have is people at that level, you are at the top of the pyramid, which means you now have 3 levels. Not only do you need to set the vision and direction for the business, you need to define all of the strategies for the business. And you need to also handle the strategic execution, which is more of that planning and figuring out what needs to get done and when it needs to get done and managing to make sure people are doing it and being the person who's checking to make sure that things are done well. And no wonder why you end up with so much dependent on you and typically so overwhelmed. Because not only is all of the work actually dependent on you, but you are continuously getting pulled out of your zone of genius and continuously getting pulled so far down into the weeds of the business that you don't really have the time to work on the business or do the visionary work your business needs to move forward. So all of that is actually a sidebar to today's topic, but it is so deeply intertwined that I wanted to reiterate that again. And I know I talk about this often on the podcast. I will talk about it again in the future because it is one of the single biggest shifts that you can make in your business. This is why I train, mentor, and certify people at this level. So when you make the shift, when you look for someone who can be at that strategic execution level, well, all of a sudden, this person is not thinking like a cost center. They are naturally thinking like a profit center. This person is strategically figuring out the best possible way to achieve an outcome. They are taking ownership of those outcomes. They are not routinely checking a bunch of stuff off a list that may or may not be the best possible way to do something. They are not just doing something because it's always been done a particular way. They are naturally trying to figure out what is the best possible way to do this? What's the most efficient way to do this? Is there a way we could do this and amplify and get better results? And because they are someone who owns outcomes, not someone who checks things off a list, and they don't feel complete simply by saying, okay, my tasks are done today. They feel complete by having achieved the outcome and the result in the business. And when that's the case, you can directly tie what they do to growth in the business. And that might be growth through bringing in new clients, but quite often, if it's more of an operational role, it's growth through client experience. It's ensuring that clients are super well taken care of, that they have an exceptional experience, so they retain better, they refer better. It's frequently putting the processes and the systems in place and the tracking and the monitoring and the optimization in place to ensure that more people are showing up for whatever you're doing for your conversion events to actually bring people into your business, whether it's getting them on a sales call or whether it's joining a webinar or some kind of training or something that you're doing or both. They're making sure that everything runs really well in the background so the client has a great experience. They get all the links they need. They're able to show up for everything. You have better show up rates. So more people show up on your sales call. More people actually show up for your workshop or your webinar. They're making sure that all the emails have gone out on time technically. They are making sure that your open rates are really good. They are making sure that things are deliverable. They are doing all of the things that directly attribute to how many people are going to see what you do and how many people are potentially going to convert. And then if you also have them focused on delivery, which frequently you will in a small business, then they are making sure that clients are actually following through, that they're getting results, and they are hopefully, and they should be, this would be part of what I would put as part of the outcomes that they own. They're ensuring that that client is already planning to take the next action that they need to take in the business. They're ensuring that that client is already thinking of other right fit people that they could refer into the business. So they are contributing directly to the growth of the business through retention, through referrals, through increased and optimized conversions. And this is all more on the operational side. Typically, now sometimes there's some overlap on the marketing side, but frequently it ends up being more on the operational side that those specific things are happening. And in a small business where you're frequently bringing in one core person who's more of your right hand person, and they're either at a strategy level if you're over seven figures, or they're at more of the strategic execution level if you're under. And the bigger your business gets, you're going to have someone at both levels. Like I have someone at both levels in my business, and it's absolutely fantastic. But that being said, that person frequently, if you're just bringing in that one core right hand person, they're going to span both functions in the business. They are the one who's going to make sure that everything in the business runs, because ultimately, at the end of the day, what they're looking at is, what are your goals? What are your financial targets? What's the vision you have for the business? They're the ones that's doing what needs to be done, determining the right strategies, orchestrating the right people, taking the right actions to ensure that that happens. Now, this person is not your marketer. They are not doing the marketing creative side of things, but they are often handling the marketing operations side of things. And so, with that being said, they are directly contributing to the growth of your business when you have them in a strategic execution role versus an execution role. It also frees you up in that case to be able to do more of the business development, to have time for more sales calls if you're still doing your own sales calls, or to do more of whatever you're doing to raise visibility, whether you are attending in-person events, you're speaking on stages, you are building relationships with the types of people who either will become clients or will become fantastic referral partners. So if you think about what this person does, when you can get them out of the weeds of things, you can get them from following SOPs or having to be told constantly what to do, then it frees you up to be able to do more of what you do best and only you can do in the business. And it gives them the ownership around the things that actually drive the business forward. And you have a much more direct tie to growth. Are they maintaining things? Absolutely. Are they making sure things run? Absolutely. But they are not there to make sure that things run. They are there to make sure that the business is achieving the goals and the outcomes and the targets that the business has set. And part of the way that's going to be possible is to ensure that things are running really optimally and really well. It's a total different mindset shift. It's a total different way of showing up. And you will not get that from a person at an execution level. They're just typically either too early in their career for it, or they are just simply wired in a different way. Someone who's wired for execution is different than someone who's wired for strategic execution. And it sounds like it might be similar, but if you have not experienced the difference yet, you will notice it the second you have a strategic execution person on your team. And if you have experienced the difference, you know exactly what I mean, and you will never, ever, ever go back to having someone at an execution level in your team. So it truly is one of the most foundational shifts. It's why I certify people as scalable ops managers, because for businesses that don't yet have somebody or don't yet need somebody at a pure strategy level in their business, absolutely transformational. And then as your business scales even further, as it gets into multi seven figures, especially, you need somebody at a strategy level as well. And the strategic execution level person. So that's the CSO, the Chief Strategy and Operating Officer, and the SOM, the Scalable Ops Manager, that come together and just can make magic happen in your business, really, truly, from a scaling perspective and freeing you to do what you need to do. In these shifts, even though it might sound like I'm talking about team design and I'm talking about getting you out of the day-to-day, all true, but ultimately, this is what turns operations into a profit center in your business. Now let's get into some of the detail of it. So let's say you've got that in place. Maybe as I'm talking, you're like, I have that person already. They're awesome. I still look at them as a cost center though. So how do I turn them into a profit center? Or maybe you don't, and you know you're going to go off and hire this person, or you're going to send your person through one of our certification programs. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, what do you look for? What do they do? How do you have them actually drive profit in the business? Because all of the things that I already mentioned, really important, absolutely something that you want to do, but those tend to be more over time, more nurture based, more ongoing based things. So, what are some things that they could do right away that's going to be increasing profit in your business, that's going to turn them into more of an immediate profit driver and have something that you can measure a little bit more clearly? So, one of the very first things that you want to do, this is actually when I go through the certification program, when I have somebody who comes in as a chief strategy and operating officer. One of the very first things that I have them do when they work with businesses is an assessment, and I call it the waste assessment. There's actually a free guide if you have not already gotten this. You could head to leanoutmethod.com/waste and you can grab it. It breaks down the 10 areas of waste, helps you understand where you have waste in your business. But there is not a single business in the history of ever that does not have waste in it. And this is where you are wasting time, you are wasting money, you are wasting energy, you are adding complexity, you are doing work that is completely unnecessary. You have things that are delayed, which can be delaying revenue that comes into your business, which compounds over time. So there are so many different things that cause waste in your business. And as I said at the beginning of the episode, there is no room for waste in a business. You must keep things lean. You must keep things efficient. You must keep things as profitable as possible. And waste eats profit. You definitely have lower profit margins than you could have in your business if you have waste in the business. Well, what somebody who is more operationally minded is uniquely skilled to do, and especially if they are someone who is well trained on this, which is why I start with this in each of my certification programs, is I help people understand how to recognize, diagnose, and minimize the waste in a business. So this could be looking at your tools and consolidating things down so you not only have a less expensive tech stack, but it's a really simple tech stack. So it's not just how much you pay per month, but it's what it takes in people hours and in the risk of something going wrong, that cost of it that you can simplify down really well by simplifying your tech stack. So that's one place. You'll see actual like outgoing costs go down, but you also will have less cost in labor and less cost in like the emergency kind of labor when things go wrong, because you've got so many different tools stitched together and so many different zaps making this thing talk to that thing and then that thing talk to that thing. When you eliminate all of that and consolidate and integrate and simplify, it gets rid of so much of that. So you want someone to focus on that. And like I said, pretty much anyone who is in an operational role at a strategic execution or strategy level, they know how to do this really well. So first things first, they'll be able to simplify things down. They'll be able to simplify the tech stack. They'll be able to look at the other areas in the business that you have waste. And again, when we did our call this week to celebrate the certification of people for the Chief Strategy and Operating Officer, the CSOO, and they shared about Lean Dream Team being really important. But the other thing they shared, which was really fascinating, was how much better they understand the areas of waste in a business and how much more confident they feel being able to go into a business and recognize exactly what's causing their growth plateaus, what's causing them to slow down, being able to go in and feel like they can basically have the business pay for their services almost right away with the money that they're able to recover and get back. All of that was interesting. But the thing that they highlighted, the thing that I was so incredibly proud of them for recognizing and so happy that they recognized, is there may be 10 areas of waste in the business. Those 10 areas of waste may show up in about 1,000 different ways. But at the end of the day, there are only 3 or 4 solutions that address every single one of them. There are 3 or 4 core systems and practices that you put in place in your business, and you put those in place and it literally addresses every single one of them. And that is why this is where I focus with everybody in my certifications. Because when you understand how to do this, you can have such a huge, tremendous impact in a business in such a short period of time. And it has that lasting compounding benefit over time in the business, which is just fantastic. So figure out where your waste is. Figure out where your waste is and take the actions to eliminate that and to minimize that. Because again, it's not just the short-term cost that you're saving, which is nice. It will have an impact on profit margin, but it's that ongoing labor cost. It's the complexity cost. It's the like tech debt that you have and the risk that you have of things going wrong and breaking. Anything you could do along those lines where you're simplifying tech and complexity, you're simplifying where you're spending time. So you're only spending time on the things that are going to have the biggest return in the business. And you don't have a lot of half finished projects, a lot of people distracted working on 75 different things and not finishing any of them. You don't put a whole ton of effort into something that you never release or never launch. You don't over deliver on things for clients or for anyone else where you have all this bonus stuff that nobody even uses, like extra features and extra things. And you invest in this whole tool and all these trainings and nobody really cares about it and uses it, right? You have somebody who understands what it takes to run a lean business, and then they're able to do this. So this is where you want that strategic execution level. Ideally, they came through my certification program, so they know all of this. But if not, find somebody who has this skill and has this background. One of the other key pieces of this is they should understand how to leverage AI. They should understand how to leverage AI strategically to be able to do some of that execution work, because that right there is going to dramatically increase your profits in your business. Because that execution type work, the more they're able to have AI automation tech tools handle some of that routine, repetitive stuff, the more they are able to continue to focus at a higher level to be able to look at creative, innovative ways to achieve the outcomes that are going to help you achieve your growth goals even faster and increase the profitability in the business. And then I touched on this already, but I want to reiterate it as my final point here. There's so much that you could have this person do, and there's so many different ways to shift the role from cost center to profit center. But one of the other things that I mentioned is anyone, again, who's operationally minded, not only are they good at spotting waste and being able to eliminate it or minimize it in the business, they're also masters at optimization. So where do you have things that are working or kind of working in the business? Right? Waste is great. You're going to go in and clean a whole bunch of stuff up and eliminate a bunch of stuff. You're going to look at what's not working. But what is working? What is working that you can set them loose on, and they can go and find ways to optimize it and amplify it? Where can they take something that's already working and get you even better results from it? So you don't have to market any harder. You don't have to sell any harder. You don't have to do any of the things that you're doing, any more of them, because they're able to optimize the process, the way that you're approaching something, the way that something is working. They're able to take that and look at the areas for amplification. Again, this is what they're uniquely skilled to do. They can see trends and they can spot patterns and they can connect dots, and they're analytical and they're technical, and they get all of the things that it might take someone else quite a while to do. They just kind of see this stuff. And especially if they're seasoned and they've been doing it for a while, they can usually see this stuff really quickly. So if you have them optimizing and amplifying what's already working in the business, combined with cutting what isn't and eliminating waste and minimizing any sort of complexity in the business, you just all of a sudden went from something that was a very boring run the business, maintain the business, go create a checklist, go update that process, and all of a sudden turned it into something much more dynamic, much more fast-paced, much more outcome-focused versus action-focused. And that is how you take someone that you might have considered a cost center and expense in your business and turn them into a profit center and a driver of sustainable and scalable growth. It all starts with how they think. It starts with having someone at the right level in your business. It starts with them taking ownership of outcomes. And then it takes you actually empowering them to own those outcomes, giving them the freedom and autonomy to be able to actually own what you want them to own in the business so they can find better ways and more profitable ways to move the business forward. And again, if you already have someone on your team that you think would benefit from the training, the mentoring, and the certifications that we have, I'd love to have you send them my way. If you yourself work with other businesses, this is something that I highly recommend that you go through and do. You can find all the details at strategicopsinstitute.com/certification. And as always, you can just put time on my calendar and we can chat about what it looks like and what would be most beneficial for you and your business based on your business goals at strategicopsinstitute.com/consult. This is one of those episodes you might want to listen to twice, because if you pay attention to a lot of what I said here, There is so much in the way that you structure and run your business that will have a profound impact, the type of results that you see and the level of profit that you see in your business. So I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Simplify to Scale. If you'd like to take things further, I invite you to join me for my Scale Smarter, Not Harder interactive workshop. Head to strategicopsinstitute.com/scale smarter to get registered. Not only will we dive into what might be keeping you trapped in the day-to-day, but you'll have the opportunity to ask me your questions live. If you got value out of today's episode, I'd love if you'd take a moment and rate and review the show so more businesses can learn to scale more simply and sustainably. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll see you again next week.